everybody. Thanks for joining me for another episode of What's That All About? So today we're going to be looking at the Freemasons. And I've wanted to do this because I have a little bit of family history with it. My grandfather was a 33rd degree Freemason. So they're known as the most well-known secret society. So even though they're supposed to be a lot of their rituals and traditions and things like that in their history, those things will never be known to us unless you're in it. I'll never be in it, unfortunately. But it's also known as like the world's oldest fraternity. And you'd think kind of, by design, you think mischief and all this stuff. That's Bohemian Grove, guys. That's like a boys' club. The Freemasons are a men's club. So they're really designed differently, okay? Now, this symbol that I'm showing you here is really their most original, like back to the basics, how they started, okay? It's joined by, you've got a builder's square, Freemasons. It all started with that. And it's joined by a compass. And then the G in the middle is sort of up to debate. It can mean geometry because geometry is very important to Freemasonry, as you know, for architecture and whatnot. And it can also mean God, or just the grand architect of the universe, they've said. But now, historically, the members, wide reaching, okay? Now, granted, you're going to have your politicians and your just noble society, right? You've got George Washington, Ben Franklin, Winston Churchill, Davy Crockett, Mozart, John Wayne, J. Edgar Hoover, of course, Roosevelt, Truman, Harry Houdini was a Freemason, Gerald Ford, Harry Ford, Henry Ford, they did call him Harry, and KFC's Colonel Sanders himself. Can you believe it? More modern day ones that are probably pretty well known are like Jesse Jackson, Michael Richards from Seinfeld, Kramer, and Sugar Ray Robinson and Arnold Palmer. Who doesn't love Arnold Palmer? To be a member, though, you have to petition a lodge, okay? And you have to show like supreme character. That's, first of all, huge distinction between the Bohemian Grove people, because it doesn't seem like, I think they like it better if you have lack of character. But anyway, I digress. Not going to let it overcome me like I did when we did the episode. They want you to have a belief also in a supreme being. They do not specify what kind of supreme being, okay? And I'll tell you more about why they don't generalize that specifically. But it's a men's only club. Now, there is, however, an affiliation called the Order of the Eastern Stars. At one time I wanted to join, but then it's just not something that I'd be interested in. But anyway, not all lodges actually recognize them. So even though women can, in some places, be part of the Mason, they're never full members. That's to be understood. So then what happens is you're voted in by members, and after that, there are 3 degrees to clear. Now, I found it interesting that, have you ever said like, oh my God, she's giving me the 3rd degree? That's where this came from. It came from the Freemasons, the saying. I did not know that. I found that pretty interesting. Anyway, after you've cleared the 3rd degree, you can join any number of lodges, and then they have like offshoots. Like say, here is a picture of the Shriners. Okay, they're the men who, as you can see, wear the red hats, and you can most of the time see them in parades or at hospitals. And there's a good reason why you're seeing them at hospitals. I was so impressed by this. They have 22 children's hospitals that they have spread out around the country, and the patients don't pay a dime, okay? Reportedly, the Masons donate upwards of $2 million a day, okay? The Bohemian Grove guys don't even invest in their own communities. Okay, I'm going back to it. I've got to stop that. But seriously, $2 million a day. How great is that? How do you not like a group that does that? Anyway, now Freemasonry began in medieval Europe as a guild for stonemasons, but lived on as a social club and organization. Okay, hence the little gradual shift. The first Grand Lodge was created in London in 1717, and most of these members were not cutters of masonry or stone, but are considered gentlemen masons. I love that. And hence the gradual forming of the fraternity versus the guild, or a guild. And it wasn't long after that the conspiracies started, which of course I love. But in this case, I was glad to see that they weren't too bad, because I didn't want them to be turn out to be a bunch of jerks, and they're not. But in 1738, Pope Clement XII issued the Catholic Church's first decree against Freemasonry. That still applies today. Not one Catholic is supposed to join the Freemasons. That's crazy. Catholics, they run the whole entire world. Biggest conglomerate there is. But in the United States, Freemasonry flourished, but its secrecy made it the object of a lot of suspicion here as well, which I guess it's just by design, and currently they only have about 1.3 million members in the United States, and that's down from, they give a random number of 4 million members in 1959. I'm not really sure why they just tossed out 1959, but that was what they gave me. There's a unique lodge of Masons. I thought this was great. And they are mostly, as you can see in this picture, they're mostly in their mid to late 20s. And they are called the Colonial Lodge number 1812. And these ones are based in Washington, D.C. And some admit to being attracted to Freemasonry by Dan Brown's novels, like all that symbolism and whatnot that he uses in his books. They were attracted to that. And also movies like National Treasure with Nicolas Cage, which I thought was a hoot. And they openly admit that. But they also say that it really was the mystery behind the Masons, and the initial spark really was the history and traditions. They wanted to find out and be part of those. So I thought that was great. Now, in general, rituals and the secrets are the same throughout the Masonic lodges. And it's a large part of their order, to be honest with you, and they really protect them. Genuinely and sincerely, in a very serious manner, they do protect them. And at the center of every lodge is an altar, and all the activities center around this altar. And there's also something interesting. There are some topics that are off limits to speak of while you're in the lodge. Religion, that's why they don't come out and say, we really want you to believe in God. They want you to believe in a supreme being, or something larger than ourselves, right? But you can't talk about religion or politics while you're in the lodge. How great is that? I mean, that keeps for a pretty happy group. Now, there are certainly some strange aspects to their rituals, I'll admit, such as the blindfolds. It's always got to be creepy blindfolds. But behind the blindfolds is a purpose. So they're applied to the new candidates as they're led into the lodge for the first time. And it's supposed to symbolize you come in with you have a dark, kind of unenlightened version of the way the world is seen through your eyes. And as you move towards the Masonic light, as they call it, you become enlightened. So the blindfolds come off and you start to become a full-fledged member. They don't do anything like with animals or anything crazy like that. That's satanic. But the greatest thing I found about this is how people in interviews, I watched a few of them, how they feel about their fellow Masons. The brotherhood and fraternal feeling that these guys form, they're built for a lifetime. I mean, they may have their social groups that they meet in secret and they have their meetings, but these guys also spend time together as families. And I really like with each other's families. And I thought that was really great. I find it really encouraging to know that a group like this. Now, granted, there are probably dark corners that I just didn't choose to look into, probably because of my grandfather and the past that I have with my family. But it does seem like at the end of the day, they do a lot for the community, and I'm down for that. I am so down for that. I don't really, I'll take the rest with a grain of salt, but I just thought you'd find it interesting. These guys are pretty neat, and they're all over the place. Not as many as before, but just something to think about. Enjoy. And until next time, stay happy and healthy and take care. And most importantly, stay weird. Bye.